daar nu nog over hebben? Nee.
No. So we are live. We were already chatting about the fact that I'm in India and Daphne is in Holland. Welcome, Daphne, in our 8th coffee break.
Thank you.
So, first question: how are you doing?
I'm actually doing pretty well. I know there are many things happening in the world right now, but I'm quite calm and relaxed. Busy as well, but that's just a normal state of being in my life. So no, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking.
Okay. Now, can you explain a little bit to our audience what you are doing? Who are you, and what are you doing?
Yeah. So I'm owner of the company named Brain Explainers, and what I'm doing, I give lectures, masterclasses, webinars about well-being and leadership in relation to neuroscience. So how the brain works and how we can make more optimal use of our brain. And I'm co-owner of Elevate, and within that company, we build towards positive and high-performing teams. That's my business part. Of course, there are many other parts. I'm mom as well, but that takes a little bit too long probably to explain everything.
Yeah, but that is one of the reasons that we have to stop, like really after 20 minutes, that you can.
I won't bore you with everything, sports I do and all those things. So
yeah. Now these two topics that you mentioned, mental resilience and high performing teams, I think these are really burning topics at the moment. What is the situation? What is the current situation? The average mental health situation of our people?
Well, I think it's quite diverse. But if you look in companies, I think stress has become an organizational problem, probably worldwide. I think being mentally or physically tired is almost more common than it is an exception. And in that regard, mental resilience, I think the world is in this time asking a lot of our brain. So if you look at mental resilience, of course, many topics are related to it, but I think stress always comes first to mind. And I think many people in this time are mentally challenged, not just within companies or in their private life, but also what's happening around the world with COVID, working from home, now going back to the office, how that will be. And as well, of course, the situation in Ukraine. I think many people are worried about that.
Yeah, in COVID, did you saw there different phases?
You mean with regard to mental resilience?
Yeah.
I think when it started, I think everybody was still like, okay, this is scary because we're not sure what we're facing, but yet we're still very positive. We'll be able to manage this. Then there was a lot of action, especially from companies. They thought, okay, what can we do? What should we do? They followed the guidelines. There was a lot of uncertainty back then. Then I think the next phase you saw people try to, okay, what is the way we should deal with this new situation? So I'm working from home. My kids are in the curtains. My husband is in the closet. The dog is running around. Those stories I hear quite often. Okay, this is a new phase. Okay, let's create an office. Let's create some silence, and let's create a little bit peace of mind and help each other. Then I think things got a little bit normalized as well. Then we were asked to go back to the office, and people were like, well, I'm not sure if I want to, because now I know how this is, and it's actually pretty relaxing. So I think we're now in the phase of how can we create this new situation in regard to working from home, working hybrid, and working from the office, and what works for companies and what works for people that work at these companies.
Yeah. And then there was a phase that they started missing the human connection when they work like mandatory from home. Now, what I read recently was that now that people are making the mix between working in the office and working at home, that mentally it's difficult to get rid of the work. So in the old situation, when the weekend was there, we just took off like our backpack with work, and we left it at work, and then at home we were free. What is happening there?
Yeah, I think a lot. This has, of course, to do with boundaries. I think two things actually. First, what we see is that our brain knows two states, so the threat state and reward state. A threat state is where we create cortisol and adrenaline. This is created when you have stress in the brain. So you don't feel so good, you lose your energy, it's difficult to get to sleep, it's difficult to focus, you feel a little bit more anxiety. And then the reward state is often when you connect to people. Human connection is, of course, a big indicator of wellness and happiness and well-being. And we miss that. So what you see is that we miss the connection, we miss the togetherness. And on top of that, it's difficult to set boundaries because, of course, normally you go to the office, you go home and you think, okay, my day is finished. And now, of course, you never know when the day is finished because your office is at home.
Yeah.
And it makes it more difficult. Also for managers, like how do you manage your team members? Because if you ask your team members, like, how are you doing? They, of course, will say, no, I'm fine, or no, not always fine. But it's not really something they could do. And I think for this reason, webinars were popping up because we still wanted to motivate and stimulate our team and give them some reassurance we are able to get through this.
Yeah. And for you, or is there a general definition of what is that resilience?
Resilience for me means, so we live in this VUCA world, probably you know the term. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So it's constantly fragile, uncertain, complex, and it's constantly changing. And I think when we talk about resilience, for me, it's about being able to deal with the constant changes, with the stress triggers in your life, and still feel a sense of happiness and empowerment and energy to do the things that you really want to do.
Yeah, that's a very nice definition. And what's then the opposite?
The opposite is feeling less in energy. So your energy is low, anxiety, fear, a lot of tiredness. And I think less flexibility in the mind. So little things happen and they tick you off immediately. You get angry, emotional, sad. A lot of tiredness, what I hear quite often. I go to bed every day at 9 is what I sometimes hear, because otherwise I won't be able to make it through the next day, which is okay for a while, but it gives an indication of how tough it sometimes can be for people. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are then the basic elements to increase your resilience?
I think there are many strategies. So there are different ways to do that. But I think in the end, it's about working on your body as well and your brain. So I think what already has been posted many times are walks. But I always say make them silent walks, because what I often see is people say, oh, I listen to a podcast. I do it with a friend. I do it with the dog and my kids around me. But if you have silence walks, you're able to relax a part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex. This is related to your conscious thinking abilities. It's starting to relax. And if you relax that part of the brain, it actually relaxes your limbic system. And this is related to a lot of emotions as well. So silent walks, for instance, truly help. And what it also does is often when you take these silent walks, you increase the, the quality of your breath work, because your breath often goes in a more slower pace. And when you do that, actually your body communicates to your brain via your hormone system and nervous system, hey, you're doing okay, you're safe. And what the brain wants to hear, this is its most important task, am I safe? Will you make it through the day? So for this reason, I truly believe in silent walks and breath work. Yeah. One of the options. There are many others, but yeah.
Yeah, and now the end of COVID seems to be, let's hope, seems to be close. But now we face that war in Ukraine. Is there an impact of that on resilience?
I'm certain of it. I think COVID asked a lot of flexibility from us. I think many people, and it doesn't matter how positive you are, positivity can be a mindset, but many people at one point wanted to have some clarity about the future. Where are we going? What are your options? And they're just tired of dealing with these constant changes and also the negativity, of course. And then we're out of COVID, and then the next really intense, horrifying pictures being presented to us. And then we have to deal with it. So how to stay relaxed and happy and easygoing in such an extreme situation of which we all know it's very close by to our own borders. So yes, it definitely has impact. And I'm almost certain of it, that it has impact on your entire being. So you have one brain, you have one being, one heart. So it's not just on your work, but also in your private life. But I believe that a lot of people will experience a lot of fear, and fear is a big indicator for how you're feeling. So fear brings you in the threat state again, instead of the reward state in which you want to do things and accomplish things. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I saw on your profile that you started your career in the pharma business.
Yes.
How did you end up in neuroscience and in the things you are doing now?
Yeah. So I worked in pharma for quite a long time. And it was then that I was offered to do an executive MBA. And I needed to write a thesis. In an executive MBA, you have different type of focus areas. And one of them was, of course, human resources. And I was always fascinated with human beings, how we acted, and what makes us tick, and how can we be more engaged within companies. So I wrote my thesis about how to increase employee engagement within companies, underpinned with neuroscience. And then I got fascinated about the brain, like, oh, gee, this is truly interesting. And if I could bring this information to companies, I was convinced that it would be worthwhile to do so, and to help people to be more happy and be more fulfilled in their jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes we speak, or it's written like, does that exist, the left side and the right side risk?
Yeah, the familiar question. Well, of course, we have a left and a right side physiologically seen. So luckily, I hope everybody has one. Yet, it doesn't mean that the one part is creative and the one part is about cognitive thinking abilities. This is more about your limbic system, is more related to your emotions, and your prefrontal cortex is more about your thinking, conscious thinking abilities. Yes, we do have a left and a right side that is connected, but it's not like it's not that strict. Let me put it like that. No.
Yeah. Okay. Now you talk about intelligence, you talk about innovation, you talk about intuition. Can you explain a little bit the link between the three?
That's a big question. Of course, we have a brain. I think a lot of activity happens in the brain. So based on the chemicals we create throughout our day, and they are actually a motivation or a demotivator on the things that we do. Having said that, and that's why I wrote a book about brain, heart, being, I believe that the heart, and I listened to your story as well, the gut has a very big importance as well, because it's your body that gives you signals as well. So with regard to intuition, and of course, the biggest questions of the human being, I think right now, is it your brain? Is it your heart? Is it your gut? I don't have the answer, unfortunately, but what I do believe in, that is a combination of a couple of things. It's about the experience you have. Are you able to listen to what is happening in your body? Like if you're in a situation and it doesn't feel good, why doesn't it feel good? I truly believe that sometimes you know, but you cannot explain it. And the brain is very good in knowing things. And then we feel something, and then our brain explains it, why we feel it. So what is before that? Is it our brain that gives the answer, or is it our feelings and our gut that gives the answer? So it's always the chicken and egg story. But I believe we do a lot of based on our gut and our intuition. Even if we don't want to, even if we think we are a very conscious human being, we're not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So what Putin is doing right now, it's not a rational decision.
He thinks, and he probably is convinced that these are rational decisions. But I think if you ask a couple of neuroscientists and psychologists if he really is, I think they can come up with very interesting theories about him.
Yeah. Now, the second item was high-performing teams. What's the definition of a high-performing team?
For me, it's also related to positive high-performing team. I think if you have a high-performing team, it contains of a couple of factors. Positivity, trust, I think is very important, and communication. And then these three combined can lift your team up into a higher level. Of course, it consists of many things, but I truly believe it starts with a person. Although you're working on team development, if you don't know what your true values are for yourself, and if you don't know what your communication style is, or how you would like to communicate to other human beings and how to react on that, or if you're not sure if you are able to trust or how to give trust, then it's quite difficult to work on a team level. So it starts with the person self, and then
Yeah.
you work towards a team level. I think quite often I've seen that people say, okay, we do teamwork. Yes, come on, we make this team work. We're going to be high performing. But if you don't know anything about who you are, how you perceive things, what is important to you, it's going to be a very tough job.
Yeah. So you have the value, personal values.
Propositions.
Yeah. What is needed then to make like a team really stick to each other?
So my personal experience and what I've seen within teams, I think gaining new insights about yourself and how you perceive things. So increasing awareness about yourself and about your external world is a very important first step, crucial. Taking it to the next level is a lot to do with trust. And trust is such a big word and we use it all the time. But what is trust? You cannot see it, you cannot capture it. So how can you build that? And I think this has to do with feeling safe. And when you feel safe, do you communicate in a respectful way? Do you have the same goals? Do you all know where your true north is? Do you have the same direction when you want to move towards to? Do you have the same purpose? Or can you create as a team a purpose or where you're standing and where you want to move towards to? And I think so there are many components that you can use to do that.
Yeah. And then resilience, how important is that for a high performing team?
I think it starts there. So it's like the part of getting insight in yourself and knowing yourself a little bit better is like in combination with mental resilience. Because if you are stressed and you are with your brain in a stress state and you're constantly surviving and you cannot see, you don't have any room, mental capacity or heart capacity to listen to other people, to be compassionate about other things, you will never make a transition to change because you're just trying to survive. You don't have room for others. So
Yeah.
this is exactly where it starts. So if you can work on your mental resilience and about your self-awareness, then you have room to listen to other people, to see other people for who they are and include them within their own vision and ideas they have.
Yeah. And how important is the role of a leader there?
Very, yet having said that, I also believe in ownership. So it's too easy to say it's the leader. If I have a bad leader, okay, we cannot do anything. We have a good leader, oh, the team is good. I truly believe if you have a good leader, and of course that's where a good leader comes in, he gives a lot of ownership to the team. And I think a good leader, if he does that and he provides that safety and security, I think only then the team can fly. But if you don't have a good leader, the question is how senior are you? Are you able to look at yourself? Are you able to still move forward together as a team and to create some safety even in an unsafe surrounding?
Yeah. It seems for a lot of people that it's important to have like a nice leader. If you see that the chance on a burnout is 3 times higher the moment that you have like what they then call a bad leader.
Yeah.
How can you explain that on a neuroscientific way?
Well, if you have a bad leader, and I think often if we would ask people what is a bad leader, probably he would say, well, he's not treating me fair. I don't trust him. He
Mhm.
says A and he does B. Things like that. I think it's a beautiful like scarf. Scarf are 5 elements that people really need. So it says status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And these 5 elements are something that people really crave for. And status is something like, oh, what is status? But we all sometimes like compliment, being seen for the things that we do. So I think if a leader doesn't provide that surroundings and doesn't try to see what another person's needs are, they don't feel motivated to do their job in an optimal way. And even worse, I think you're even creating a bad influence in the energy within the team. So people start to gossip and people don't know where to move towards to, who they can trust within the team as well. So a leader is crucial in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah. And then a last question before you drive your daughter to the hobby.
Yes, important as well.
What do you need to be happy at work?
Well, probably if people looked into Seligman, something we use within our team strategy, within our program, Martin Seligman looked at what is happiness. So there are different components to work on happiness. And it's not just, for instance, connection, but it can also be like this pleasant life. So the little things. And he has created 5 blocks, what can increase happiness. So I think for everybody that means something different. So you can ask yourself, what is making me happy? Do you dare to write that down? Because your answer probably will be different than mine answer, and they're both true. So again,
that was my question. What makes you?
Driving my daughter now to.
Okay.
No, overall, I'm a very happy woman. So but what makes me happy? I have to say, nature, relaxation time. I love my work. I love building teams and seeing the sparkle coming back in the team. It really gives me a lot of joy to do so. Giving people insights in their self, like, oh, who are you, and how can you optimize that? Just creating a better life for others. That is something that makes me really happy.
Very nice to hear. The clock is showing 20 minutes, so
Yes.
we will round. And I thank you for being our guest in this 8 coffee break.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure to have you, and let's talk soon.
We will. Enjoy your day. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.